Hey there, welcome back everybody. So today I'm looking at an extremely cool and useful and very, very good value for money app called Piano Motifs that can generate little piano pieces, 8 bars, with a left hand part and a right hand part, and which we can then export either as an audio file or a MIDI file. And before I talk about that, let me just let you hear a little bit of what that can sound like. Right? You get the idea. Sounds very nice. So we can take audio or MIDI from that, but today I'm going to concentrate on MIDI. And then I'm going to look at how we can take that MIDI and put it into, here I'm using Photon AU. You could use, if you're a DAW user, you could use Cubase or whatever, right? You could put the MIDI in there and you could do a whole bunch of different stuff with it. But here I'm going to look at this very cool little app, which is quite a good option for people who are using AUM, for example. So we're going to look at how we can put that MIDI in here, and we can then route that MIDI. Like, for example, here I'm routing the right hand of one of these piano motifs that I generated a couple of days ago into this instance of Mela here. And I'm putting the left hand part into another instance of Mela, a very nice synth. I'm going to be doing a tutorial on this at some point. Okay, I'm going to look then at how we can, there's so much you could do, right, with like all the different mosaic patches, scripts or whatever that you can get on patch storage if you have mosaic. You could do tons of things to this MIDI. But today I'm just going to look at a couple of apps. This is one of them, midiGATEs by Arthur Kearns, which we can use to, use this instance, we can use to add in some randomization. Bring in fewer notes, for example. Okay, there are a bunch of different cool ways we can do this. So I'm gonna look at that later. I'm going to look at this very cool little Midi Echo app, also by Anthony Saunders. This can do things that an audio echo could not. And very clean sounding. So we're going to look a little bit at how we can use this app. To look at how we can use Rozeta Scaler to keep everything together, to quantize everything to a scale. If we don't do this, we're going to get chaos, basically, when we start transposing things and adding different pitch shifts based on semitone divisions and so on. We're going to just end up sounding like we're jumping around from one scale to another. It's not going to be musical anymore. So Rozeta Scaler helps us to keep things musical. I'm going to very briefly mention how we can use tonality, which was free a couple of days ago. It seems like a really useful app. I just got that and I think it's going to be a super little tool. I'm going to look at how we can use that to quickly determine the scale and the key that something's in, if we're not sure. It can be very useful. All right, so that's basically what today's session is going to be about. Okay, so let me just stop that again, and let's first go back and take a look at how to use Piano Motifs. So here in the settings part, we can choose our key and scale. We have a few choices here. Time signature. We can choose the minimum and maximum octave range. This was actually a feature that I suggested. Let me just mention, in fact, that this developer has been really, really responsive. Fernando seems like just an absolute top guy. Someone invited him to the AudioBus forum, which if you're not a member of, by the way, is really such a useful resource for iOS music makers. audiob.us, AudioBus. So let me finish first. So someone invited him into the AudioBus forum, and he's just been incredibly responsive. So people have loved this app in there, but they also saw that it had so much potential to be improved and to become something incredibly powerful. And Fernando has just been an absolute boss, you know. He's really stepped up and made a lot of changes to this app in a really short time. And as I say, I mean, it's a very cheap app. I think it's only about $2 or something. So it's great value for money. I mean, especially if you can't play keyboard well, or if you can't play at all, you know, you can come up with some beautiful stuff here, you know. So really so useful. And for example, the MIDI out feature is one of the things that was suggested by users. That wasn't there originally, and that has made this app, you know, 20, 30, 40 times more powerful. So brilliant developer. Yeah, I just want to say thanks a lot. Plus, by the way, just in case you haven't noticed, in the comments section, there's probably something about this. Fernando has been kind enough to offer no less than 4 codes to give away to viewers. You just have to subscribe, right? And by the way, you know, hit the bell on the subscribe option as well if you haven't yet, so you get notified of videos. Because I often have offers going with videos. So yeah, you just got to subscribe and like this video and write a comment. And then you'll have a chance to win one of these 4 copies. So thanks again, Fernando. All right, so octaves, minimum and maximum. Why would we want to set that? Because if you like ambient music, for example, and if you're a fan of Heinbach, for example, you'll know that he often talks about how most things sound really much better slowed down to half pitch. And the only problem is when we put things down to half pitch, if there's a lot of bottom end, it'll start to get very boomy. So it can be nice to play just in the higher octaves if we want to pitch that output audio down, say 50% or whatever. So in that kind of case, it could be quite useful to just choose something like, say, you know, octaves 3 to 6. But let's just leave it at default for now. Extended BPM on will allow the BPM to go down as low as 20. And that was another thing that was suggested by Svetlowska from the AudioBus forum. So again, great responsive dev. The share MIDI and skip button is an important one. If it is set to off, when a motif has finished generating, you will have the choice to share it as audio or as MIDI. So you'll have that choice. But the disadvantage is that you will have to wait the full 20 seconds until the motif is finished playing. 20, 25 seconds. But of course, it depends on what your BPM is, right? So you're going to have to wait, and you can't skip to the next one in the middle of it. You can't export while it's playing. But if you know in advance that you only want MIDI, you don't want audio, then you can choose on here, and that way it will give us just MIDI export option, but we have the advantage of being able to skip while it's generating. Right, see, like this, we can just press the skip button. Okay, and here we go to the next one. Then maybe you think, okay, I know I like this already. I want to share it, and then you can just click on MIDI. If you hadn't selected that last option in that list, you would have had to wait until the end of it. Okay, so there's not really very much we have to look at about Piano Motifs itself. It's an extremely useful app, but it's a very simple app, and there's not too much to say about it. Okay, so then let's look at how we export. So let's say we want to export the MIDI. We can export, for example, to audio share, and here we have the MIDI. Okay, so then from audio share, for example, it's very easy to share to other things like AUM and load in AUM's file player and so on, if it's an audio, for example. And then another option would be, I need to close this if I want to choose another one. Okay, so if we want to put it into Photon, the MIDI player, it's also a MIDI recorder, by the way. Really useful little app, but I'm just using it as a player today. So copy to Photon, and then I choose import. Okay, refresh to see in list. Okay, there it is, Piano Motif 7. Now, even if I click on that or whatever in here, nothing will happen because Photon is only an audio unit. The only use of the standalone app is to read the manual and to import things into. So we have to put them into the standalone, and then they will become available in AUM or whatever, you know, you're opening your audio unit in. So you can see why I'm not going to go into this app in too much detail today. It's a 30-page manual. So today I'm only going to look at some of the key functions of Photon in relation to doing what we're doing, loading a Piano Motifs file in AUM. So let me open Photon here, and you can see that we've already got this MIDI in here. So how do we load MIDI? We just open File here, and then we choose the thing that we want. Actually, let me do this in a different instance. Let's do it here. So I click on File, click on Piano Motif 7, and then I click on Load. Okay. And you can see there are two tracks because one is for the left hand and one is for the right hand. So really, if I want to put both of these in, I would open two instances of Photon here and load track 1 into one of them and load track 2 into the other. So I'm jumping over to the pad controls thing here, and I press assign. And if we look down here, pad 1, start now. If I click on that, I get other choices like start on bar, start on beat. So this is going to determine what will happen when I press the play button. So let's just choose start on bar. And of course, nothing's happening, right? Because this MIDI is not being sent anywhere. So what we need to do is take, for example, one of our synths. So here we have OBXD, and click on here. And okay, here we go to this. Okay, this is this current instance of Photon that we're looking at, right? M111 through. Okay, and choose this. And you see now that's starting to play that MIDI in the synth. then we can do various things. For example, we can transpose, and those changes will only take place at the end of a bar, by the way. We can change the velocity, so obviously here we've got nothing. Get it nice and quiet and very loud. We can do other things with the tempo, for example. Again, we have to wait to the bar. So we've got a super fast one here. We can get it, slow as well, whatever. We can control the number of loops that it will do here. At the moment it's set on infinite. And the start beat, where it will start in here. Oh yeah, pad controls, right. And we can control the duration. Right, so that's a little look at that. But I'm going to disconnect this because I don't actually want that to trigger that. Okay. So again, here we have this right hand of a patch that I generated a couple of days ago that I liked. And I'm going to look at how we could use midiGATEs to bring some variety in there. So you can see here we have gate, note, sequencer, and through. So through is just gonna, let all the notes pass through. So it's not doing anything. That's good for A being, comparing what you've set up here with what it would be like if you didn't have anything set up. Now here we have gate, and at the moment gate and through is sounding exactly the same because gate is at 100%, and that means it's letting 100% of the notes through. If we take it down a little bit, here it's only letting in 94% of the notes. So it's still going to sound pretty much like the same melody, but there's going to be some notes missing from time to time, so that'll add a little bit of variation. So here we're going to be getting a lot of silence. And here we're going to have nothing. Now here, gate on, repeat. If we put this to 7, here, when it lets a note through, it's always going to let the next 7 notes through. Here, when it turns off a note, it's always going to turn off the next 7 notes as well. So we can use this to, make longer pauses or longer periods of notes playing one after the other. So again, it's just a way to get a little bit of control over the randomness. Right. So, you can use these kind of things for little sort of breakdowns in your song. Okay, but this one doesn't really give you much control if we compare it to something like this note. setting, because here we can actually like control it right down to the level of the particular notes that we want. So let's say I always want all the D, I want all the D sharps to play. Then I can put that up to 100. And let's say also I want all the Fs to play. And all the, let me think what's in this actually. Yeah, A sharp in this scale. Let's say I don't want all of the A sharps but I want quite a lot of them. Then I could put it up to something pretty high, 87 or whatever. Right, so, we can go in and tinker around here. So again, we can use this to basically play a live performance and add variety to our performance without actually being able to play, without having to play the keyboard. I mean, you could really, if you really work on learning how to use this like an instrument, you could do very interesting performances without playing a note. So here we can get randomness, but we can sort of keep some more order and some regularity by having less randomness in which notes are being played. We can just make it sound slightly more together. Okay, so that's that note section. Okay, so here, the sequence part, we have note time 4, time 8, time 16. Look at how that behaves differently. So here it's moving along with every note that's played. 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is in line with the notes. It's not quantized to note divisions in the bar. It's to do with the actual notes that are being played. But if we put it here, we can see that it's moving for each beat in the bar. 2, 3, 4. Right, so it's synced to the BPM. The note one is not synced to the BPM, it's just by the played notes. So here it's going to be moving along in this pattern every half beat, every quarter beat. So you can see it's going to run through 2 of these 8 patterns in the space of 1 bar. Right, so again we can, for example, you might want to drop things out, but you might want to keep, for example, the 1st and the 5th in here to keep that nice regular feel. Again, it just won't sound completely random. It's going to sound more organized, more ordered. So this is a really nice one for doing breakdowns and variations. This one can come up with some really nice musical patterns, which are nevertheless random. And that randomness is really important in electronic music, because if you don't have some amount of randomness, it just gets boring for the listener quickly. So even small amounts of randomness just keep the listener's attention so much better. We can alter the number of steps here. So you see, obviously here it's going to be letting everything through. So again, a lot of control this gives you. It's a really, really, really useful app. And it really pairs nicely with this MIDI output from Piano Motifs. So let's look at Midi Echoes. Actually, maybe I'll keep it on that sequenced one. Okay, so Midi Echo. We turn it on or off with this. Now here we set the number of echoes. Let me turn this down a little bit. It's important to explain a few things here about how the echoes work in this thing. So, listen to what happens when I put the number of echoes up. You can see that a lot more high echoes are coming in. Because what's happening is that the first echo will be 4 semitones up from the input note. And then the next echo will be 4 semitones up from that. If we change this, now the space between each echo is 7 semitones. 8 semitones. Now you might notice, if we put the pitch very high, you can hear there are actually like very few echoes in there now. Let's see, this is nothing practically. Right. Again, there's very few here because it has to keep within the range of MIDI. So there's only 127 notes available. So if you put large number of echoes, but you also put large jumps in pitch, a lot of the echoes that are being generated are going to be outside the MIDI range and it won't be able to play them. So if we put a low number for pitch, like 2 for example, and we put a high number of echoes, then we're just going to get tons of echoes here because it's still going to stay within the 0 to 127 limit. Gain, okay, if we put the gain to 50, each successive echo will decrease in volume by half if we have this set to fixed. So you can listen here. This is like a typical echo. Let me put it up again. They're getting less quiet with time, just like normal echoes do. When we choose ping pong and we have the pitch set to 2, what's going to happen is that the first echo will go up 2 semitones from the input, then the next echo will go down 2 semitones from the input. It goes around like that, up and down sort of thing. Taper. The echoes increase in gain rather than decreasing. I really like this one. And here we can get delay times fixed to tempo. Although I've noticed that the milliseconds and the number of beats and so on that's given here does not actually match what I see when I don't have an internet at the moment, yeah. When I look at some delay calculator online and I check my BPM here, 74, whatever. You know, quarter beats for 74, that should be 811 milliseconds, but that's not actually the sort of thing that I'm seeing here, so I don't know if there's been some kind of mistake made here, but anyway, it's not coming out the same as what I see in the delay calculator. Now, if we put it here, we can just freely select, and that's where a delay calculator can be very useful, because we can see exactly for the BPM that we're using what is the right thing. Oh, now if we put a delay time of 0, we actually get chords rather than delay, which can be quite useful. I just love delay so much. Down here we can mute the echoes, so we can come up with different, you know, kind of rhythmic patterns here by cutting out some of the echoes. Obviously, if this is set on 7 here, then, you know, whatever's happening above 7 is irrelevant, unless we, you know, it's gonna start bringing in more high ones. So we have here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, right. See how it works? Okay. So you can see this echo mute can actually be very nice to play around with and get kind of more musical sounds with it. If you have 0 delay time, you can actually use that to make it adjust the way it plays chords. I love the sound of this thing. Okay. Then let's look at Rozeta Scaler. Well, before that, let's look at tonality. See, when let's turn this down. When I exported this from Piano Motifs the other day, I didn't save the information about the key and the scale and all that kind of thing. So when I went back to it later, I was maybe wanting to play along with it. You know, for example, you know, here I'm playing along with this thing, and in Velocity Keyboard, it's quite nice sometimes to actually tell it what it's up here. You know, tell it what scale you're using and your root note and that kind of thing. And so if you don't know what scale and key it's in, you you can use tonality. So how do you do that? First of all, you're going to try and just play some notes. You're going to play some notes, and then, you know, if you know scales and things, then you're going to know what scale it is. But if you don't, you can use tonality. So let me show you how to do that. So first of all, I'm going to route the keyboard into tonality, and I'm going to press hold and scale. Yes, we have that. And then I'm going to put in the notes that I know work with this, because I was, you know, experimenting or whatever and found, all right, that sounds good. And so then it will, you know, show me the different scales and things, and you can just sort of experiment and see what you think the root note is. You know, how do you feel it resolves, and come up with a bunch of choices. D sharp minor, or it could be G sharp, melodic minor, and so on and so on. So you might need some experimentation, but anyway, that is a very useful little tool for that. So then, with the scale figured out, we can go into Rozeta Scaler, and we can set it up in here. And now we can transpose in Photon, as we saw earlier. Or we can transpose in here. If we do input transpose, everything is going to be still sounding good, because the output is always going to be quantized to G sharp minor. And here we have some choices, what happens with the out of scale notes. So if we choose quantize up, then if a note falls between the notes of the scale, it's going to move that up, so it's going to play the next note above that belongs to the scale. If we choose quantize down, then it's going to move it down to the next appropriate note. And if we choose reject, it's just going to cut it out. So you can see we're hearing fewer notes. So again, you know, this is something that we can use to add variety. And we can just play around without worrying too much, because we know it's not going to go out of scale. So that gives you an idea. That gives you an idea of what we can do with piano motifs. Even if you can't play a single note on a keyboard, you know, you're going to be able to produce beautiful melodic songs that you can put your own stamp on. by taking the MIDI in and playing around with all this different stuff. Wonderful. So don't forget, everybody, codes available. Again, check out the details in the comments section. And I hope you enjoyed this. Good luck. See you in the next video.